Hello folks, I hope that you guys are just having a great and safe and happy day in our COVID world today. Today I'm taking a look at one of the classics of science fiction, Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. You've heard about it, you've seen the movie, you've read it. If you haven't read it, you've at least heard about it. It's heavily influential on robots and robot stuff. So let's take a look at the series I, Robot for you. Now I've read the series, this novel, which is a collection of short stories written in the 40s. It was published in the early 50s. And the collection is how most of those stories remain in print to this day and are read. In it, Isaac Asimov will introduce basically this world of robots where robots have taken over a lot of our sort of their tasks. They have 3 laws of robotics that happen in order from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1, and when they conflict, the higher level one will take over. So the first highest level one is the first law of robotics, is that a robot cannot, through action or failure to act, cause harm to happen to a human. So that's sort of the first law. No matter what else happens or what the other laws state, that one always wins. The second one is that a robot must always obey a directive by a human. Now, obviously, if that directive were to hurt somebody, it wouldn't take it because hurting is a higher law. And then the third one is that a robot must not cause itself to come to harm. So if it's ordered to cause itself to harm, the order will be higher. If it has to cause itself to go to harm in order to save a human, it will do that but that's the third law, is that it won't hurt itself. So those are basically the 3 laws of robotics in order 1, 2, and 3 that Isaac Asimov creates. Now, most of these stories in this series will deal with humans or robots being tested or viewed, and how their interpretation of the 3 laws of robotics, or special parameters that were built into that robot, will determine and dictate the end of that story. And in the course of this, you're going to have a lot of number of stories that take place that are analyzing these sort of 3 key rules of robotics, and how the robots that are designed to follow these rules will follow along with them. This my favorite shorts, and I read this when I was in college age, and I came back and read it like last week. I knocked this out I'm recording this on a Sunday. I knocked this out in just a couple of days, like 3 days. I'm still in that sort of science fiction mood. I enjoy Isaac Asimov as a writer. I think he's a really strong and gifted and talented writer. His short stories are longer. In this one, the shortest one's like 15 pages. Most are 25 or 30. Typically, when I go to do a 25 or 30 page short story, it's a little harder for me to set aside at that time. It's a little harder for me to do it. Isaac Asimov, you just blow through it. I got a half hour. Let me knock it out. Here I got half an hour. Let me knock it out. He is such an easy writer, especially at shorter fiction. I do think that Nightfall by him, which is considered by many to be the best science fiction short story of all time, is actually his best story. I like his Foundation novels. I like his other things too. I like this series of stuff, the robot series. But at the end of the day, I really think he's just such a gifted short story writer. And this collection of short stories is the same way. You're going to get a variety of different things. My favorite short story in this collection is the penultimate one, where you have a question, and the central question of that story is this person who's running for office, are they a robot or not? And you're going to find out over the course of the story. There are rumors in the press that this person who's running for a local election is in fact actually a robot and just an artificial robot. Even though they look like a human, talk like a human, and act like a human, there are rumors that this person is actually super secretly a robot. And so that's sort of the central sort of characteristic. And I mentioned before that Isaac Asimov is the social scientist of the big 3 writers. He writes a lot about social science rather than hard science, which is what he was trained in. And for example, his several of his robot stories, like the penultimate one, dealing with a local election campaign as its central sort of conflict. Again, it shows social science as the central sort of theme rather than a hard science, right? It's not an exploration to other planet, right? It's a campaign where one of the people is rumored to be a robot, right? And I enjoyed that. A whole lot more. It feels more real. It feels more gritty. Those are the questions that we would have if we were living in a robot society. We would say, hey, is this guy who's running for office, who's really super nice for a human, is this person actually a robot or not? Those are exactly the sorts of things that we would be doing, and we would have, I guarantee you, internet websites and YouTube videos that were dedicated to exposing the hidden robots within our political campaigns, and conspiracy theories that were running amok and so forth. And you have that happening predicted in this 1940s short story by Isaac Asimov. This guy is an incredibly talented writer, incredibly good when it comes to predicting how we would act as people. He just knows us. He knows us from Nightfall. He knows us from iRobot. He knows us from his Foundation series. And his writings on social science are, I think, his best. I think he's at his best when he is a social scientist. His hard science is fine, but when you take a look at the short stories in here, I think the ones that focus on social science topics, like elections, or who's running a nation and who's the super secret power behind it, those are, I think, better than, hey, let's go to Mercury and have an expedition to Mercury with one of the first robots that's created for this expedition to Mercury. And the robot's going crazy. We call him Speedy. And he's going crazy. Why? I think that he's better in the social science. I think it's where his passion is. I think it's where his brush is the strongest as an artist, is when he's doing social science topics. And it's one of the reasons I think Nightfall is so strong as a short story, is because it's about social science. He uses hard science to underpin social science. He understands who we are as people. And he's an incredibly talented member of the Big Three, and one of the most influential writers in science fiction because of that. Now, while speaking about influence, not just Isaac Asimov, but this series of stories in iRobot has become very influential. Very modern takes on robots have looked at adding in the laws of robotics that are introduced in this series of stories. It creates the Robot series, which will become one of his most popular series. Other authors in the genre will follow along with it, as well as people outside of the genre. So this is incredibly impactful. So there you are. There's the iRobot collection for you. I thought about doing this piecemeal, one short story at a time, but I feel it's just better just to do it as a collection and move on. That's how most people read it and come to it. The iRobot novel isn't based on any particular novel. The iRobot movie, rather, starring Will Smith, isn't based on any particular short story, but just on the general idea of the series. So it's not super reflective, I think, of the sort of ideals of the things. I wish they had chosen a short story and ran with that rather than just taking the sort of laws of robotics and a couple of other things and putting them face front of your conflict of your movie. I think it would have been a stronger movie if it had been based on one of his short stories or one of his novels in the Robot series rather than just on the basic idea, using the name and the title. So I do think that was an error on the movie maker's part, but what do I know? I'm not a movie maker. I'm an administrator at higher ed. That's what I do. So anyway, there's iRobot for you. I've now read the collection twice for you. I really enjoyed it. It's incredibly well written. It's Isaac Asimov at his best. One of the best writers at his best, and most striking. And I'll go ahead and leave you to it. So have you read the iRobot or any of the Robot series stuff? What'd you think about it? Do you agree or disagree with my thoughts therein? Is there anything you want to unpack in the comments below? Just let me know and I'll be happy to talk with you about it further. I try to respond to those as quickly as possible. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. There's going to be so many more of these to follow. And finally, if you watched, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and watching my video. We all have so many things happening in our lives, and our time is just taken in so many different directions by so many different things and so many different people, right? So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I really do appreciate that. So thanks again and have a great day.